Hello and welcome back to Pick Up the Pieces. I'm Stacy, and today in the Pickup Kitchen we are making a whole bunch of appetizers. There were a whole bunch of things we were kind of craving this week that we really wanted to eat, and we have made dinner out of a bunch of appetizers before, so that's what we're doing today. So the first thing we're going to make, or get started on anyway, is an easy potato skin. Now potato skins, when you make them, usually you bake a bunch of potatoes and you scoop out the insides, and then you kind of bake them again to get them crispy, and then you fill them with stuff, and that takes time, it takes effort. I find it's hard to get the potato out of the actual skins without breaking the skins half the time, so I've kind of come up with a way to make potato skins easier. They taste just as good, but it's a lot less work and effort. So I am going to bake some bacon in the oven. So to make cleanup easier, I'm just lining 2 baking sheets with some foil. And when I make bacon, I bake it in the oven. So when I line these sheets with the foil, it just makes cleanup easier. And when I bake it, I start with a cold oven. So I will put my bacon on these sheets and then put it in an oven and then turn it to 400 and let it bake that way. The bacon, for some reason, renders more evenly and cooks better and becomes crispier and nicer if you start it with a cold oven rather than popping it into a very hot oven. So I'm going to use our nonstick spray just to make it a little easier for the bacon to come off these sheets later on. And if you wanted to skip that, you absolutely could, but I don't want it to be harder later on to get this off the tray. I want it to be easier. So I am going to spray with the cooking spray. Now this is probably a pound, maybe a little more than that, of bacon. And all I'm going to do is just kind of line up this bacon on my tray here. And I'm going to try to make sure that the pieces of bacon are in an even layer and they're not touching. It doesn't really matter what kind of bacon you use for this. If you wanted to use turkey bacon, you could. It would be just as good. We happen to have regular bacon on hand, so that's what we're using. If you wanted to skip the bacon altogether, you could do that. But traditional potato skins are potato, bacon, green onion, cheddar cheese, and then usually you kind of dip them in some sour cream. So that is what we're going to do today. All right, and if I have to, I can scooch that piece of bacon in on that tray, but right now we're going to get this tray going. And if we have to do this in 3 batches, that's fine, we'll do that. Bacon cooks pretty quickly, and we will keep an eye on it around here. I'm usually the one in charge of making the bacon because my husband is famous for burning it. So I'm usually the bacon watcher, and he's usually the bacon destroyer. So, all right. Looks like we're going to have a couple of extra pieces. That is fine. I'm just going to get our plastic bag here. I'll get our couple of extra pieces just on there. I'm going to wash my hands and get these in the oven, and then I'll show you what to do with the potatoes. So our bacon's in the oven, and it is going to start cooking, and now we're going to get our next tray lined with our foil. Now, if you wanted to use like a silicone mat or something instead of foil, that's completely fine. You could do that. I love my heavy-duty foil, so that's what I'm going to use. And this is about 3 pounds of potatoes, but I am not worried. These are not going to go to waste. And all I'm going to do here is line these up on my tray. One of my potatoes has a little nub on it that I'm just going to trim off, but the rest of them look good. So these are going to get coated with a bunch of olive oil, and I'm using an extra virgin olive oil here. And you want to use a good amount of them. You don't want them to stick. And this is all the oil that we're going to be adding to this recipe. We're not going to add more later. And then this is a potato spice that we purchased. It was actually, I think the gentleman that was selling these was like at our county fair, and he had a booth set up, and it's TJ Morgan's Gourmet Potato Spice. And it's something that I believe he sells online. If I can find it, I'll link it for you. But we really like this spice. It's really good on potatoes. It's got salt, butter flavor, and garlic and onion and other spices, I guess, in it. It's not really listed what exactly is in it, but it's delicious and it makes potatoes taste really good. So we're just going to get this generously on our potatoes. And then I'm just going to roll these on the tray so that they're coated. Maybe add just a little bit more oil. This is going to be the first step for cooking these potatoes. They're going to go in and roast at about 425 in the oven until they are tender. And then I'm going to take like a cup, or you can use like a metal measuring cup, and I'm going to smush these down on the tray and turn them into potato skins that way. So first step, we're going to roast these in the oven at a high heat, get them nice and crispy crunchy on the outside and pillowy and fluffy on the inside. And we'll show you that when they're done. We're going to move on now to our spinach artichoke dip, and our spinach artichoke dip contains some Parmesan cheese in it, and it also has some Gouda. Now, the recipe that I found, it's a Joanna Gaines recipe, and it is absolutely delicious. Actually, friends of ours came over one time, and they made this and brought it with them, and we just absolutely loved it so much that this is now the actual spinach artichoke dip that we make from now on, because it's just so good. And that's what we tend to do. We find a recipe that we like, we basically stick with it. If we eventually find another one that we like better, we might replace it, but that is just kind of how we are when it comes to recipes. Now, if you can shred your own cheese at home, it's definitely better for you to do so. You will find that buying a hunk of cheese generally is less expensive per pound or per ounce than buying shredded already cheese. Also, the cheese that they sell at the store that's already shredded tends to have anti-caking agents on it or preservatives on it that keep it like from sticking to itself. So if you shred your own cheese at home, not only will you save some money, but you'll also probably get a better product. So I'm just going to chunk up this Parmesan just to make it easier for my food processor to do the work. And we will use about 6 ounces of this and 6 ounces of the Gouda, and then the rest of it we'll just save for future use. This smells delicious. And the rind of the Parmesan you can save. Generally, I do not grind up the rind and use it. This rind comes in really handy, like if you're making a sauce, like especially like a pasta sauce. If you put the rind of your Parmesan in the pasta sauce, it adds a ton of flavor. So I'm just going to shave a little more of the cheese off this rind, and then I'll put it to the side. And that's going to be great the next time we make sauce. Now, I'm also going to get my Gouda ready. That way I can just shred all my cheese all at once. We really don't need to shred all of this Gouda technically, but we're going to, because then we've got it shredded, ready to go, and we're more likely to use it. If I just wrap up half a hunk of cheese, put it back in the fridge, I'm likely to forget about it. I'll put it in a drawer, and then I'll find it in a couple of weeks all molded. So it's better if I'm doing this now that I shred it all, and then we'll maybe put this on some eggs or something like that during the week, and it'll be delicious. So Gouda, unlike the Parmesan, the rind on this is not edible. It is, I believe, a wax, so we're going to get that off. And you got to make sure you get all of it, because some of the red is wax, but then I believe some of this orange is wax too. So I will trim that off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shred my Parmesan cheese first, and then I'll do my Gouda. I don't mind if my Gouda tastes a little bit like Parmesan, but I don't want my Parmesan to taste like Gouda. So I'm going to do it in that order, and that way I don't have to clean the food processor in between. That little bit of wax would not have been very tasty in our cheese, so I am just getting it off of there. Now for this recipe, if you wanted to, you could use a smoked Gouda. That would be delicious. We are just going with a traditional Gouda, but smoked, like I said, would also be tasty. If you don't like Gouda and you wanted to substitute maybe some mozzarella or something like that, you absolutely could. Just make sure it's a really good melty cheese. Okay, so our cheese blocks are ready to go, and now we're going to get this shredded up in our food processor. You could shred this by hand if you want, if you have a hand grater, but to be honest, I like my knuckles just as they are, and I work much better with a food processor than I do with a grater. So we're going to shred this up. So our food processor did a great job of processing up this Parmesan, and you can see it's nicely shredded. When you buy Parmesan shredded at the store, you really can't control how thick or thin it is. So sometimes you'll get grated Parmesan cheese from the store. Sometimes you'll get shredded. This is nice because we could control what the shreds look like. So I'm going to dump this into a bowl. And I will pull out what I need to use for our dip. And then whatever I don't end up using, I'll just put in this jar with this lid on it in the fridge. And that will keep it nice and fresh and ready for us to use the next time we need some Parmesan cheese. So now I'm just going to get this back on here. And we're going to shred up our Gouda. Our Gouda now is all shredded up, and I'm just going to get this out of my food processor and into a bowl because it's going to be easier to do that than to try to get it into a smaller container for storage. What I'll do then with my big bowls of cheese here is I'll use what I want to use, and then when I get to the point where I've put my dip in the oven, I can just take a second to get this cheese, transferred to a different container or whatever, put it in the fridge or the freezer, and then move along. So I'm going to get my food processor out of the way, and we are going to get going on our spinach artichoke dip. Now, our spinach artichoke dip I'm going to mix in here, and so we need, we need a pound of spinach I bought frozen, and we're thawing that, and we're going to squeeze the liquid out of it. I need about 15 ounces of artichokes, a block of cream cheese, some mayonnaise, the shredded cheese, the Gouda cheese, some garlic, some white pepper, some dill, and some paprika, and then we're going to bake it. And we're going to bake it in this lovely, I guess it's like I don't know if you call it a tart pan or a pie plate or whatever, but I love serving my spinach artichoke dip in this, or any kind of dip, really. I love to serve in this. So that's the plan. So I think I'm going to get my artichokes chopped up. So I've got about a 30-ounce jar here, about almost like 34 ounces, and I really only need 15. Uh-oh. Handsome husband's going to have to help me with that. That's why he's always on standby, of course, flexing his muscles and chopping up or opening up the jars. So I chop and he opens jars. So all I'm doing here with my lovely little artichoke hearts, and I didn't get the marinated ones. The recipe that I'm gathering inspiration from says to use the marinated ones. I'm just getting the ones here that are in brine. They're not in oil or anything. The artichoke hearts are whole. They're not already cut in half. And I'm just going to cut them in half and then cut them in quarters. I do like my dips to have some texture to them. I don't want them to just be mush or like pureed like. So that is why I kind of keep some texture to it. So I'm just going to get about half this jar chopped up. We only need about 15 or 16 ounces. So this is like a 33, almost 34 ounce jar. And so I'm just going to basically eyeball half of it. And then the rest of these will go in the fridge and I'll snack on them, or I'll put them in a salad. Or maybe I'll just, if we make pasta this week, I'll fold some of these, cut up into some pasta. Really, you can do anything with artichoke hearts, and they're delicious. So if you haven't tried them, I hope that you do. I'm just going to grab a couple more of these. Maybe one more is probably plenty. So I think that's about 15, 16 ounces, and the rest can go in the fridge. So I am going to put those in our bowl. Now I've got some garlic, and so we have 3 cloves of garlic here, and I'm going to use my favorite garlic chopper to do this. And I like to just kind of cut the cloves of garlic into thinner pieces. That way when they chop in the garlic chopper, they chop into smaller dices rather than longer slices, I guess. And I just pulled these garlic cloves right out of our freezer. I always peel mass quantities of garlic and freeze it. And then I have it ready to go anytime I need it. Do we need to check the bacon? Okay. Handsome husband is telling me that we need to check on our bacon. So I will do that. Oh, and the potatoes. We'll check on our bacon and check on our potatoes, and I'll be right back. So we took a pause on our spinach artichoke dip because our bacon, or at least one tray of our bacon, is ready. So we're going to get these pieces of bacon off the tray and onto a plate that I've lined with a paper towel. This paper towel will absorb the extra bacon grease that we don't want to be eating. Then I can throw my last few pieces of bacon on this sheet and get them back in the oven. Our potatoes are nice and soft, and now I'm going to get them ready for the next step. So all you do to make these potato skins is just smash your potatoes gently. Use something metal or something like heat-resistant plastic. I do not suggest using glass for this. Using like a glass cup could result in it smashing and you cutting yourself, so please be careful when you do this. But a metal measuring cup works just perfect. And all you're doing is taking each one of these potatoes and giving it a little smush. And you want it to be about that thick. We are going to put these back in the oven, and they are going to cook some more at 425, and they're going to crisp up. So they're basically going to be like a nice, thick, crispy potato skin without all the work of baking a potato and scooping it and all of that. So I'm going to keep going on these. If I have to grab another tray for these, I will. They can be pretty close together. You just don't really want them touching because you do want some nice, crispy edges as they continue to bake. So I'm going to continue doing these, and then I'll show you what they look like after they're baked a second time. The potatoes initially cooked for about 25 minutes on 425. Now they're going to go back in the oven for 10 more minutes. And this is my second tray of potatoes. Now all I did was grab another sheet pan, put some foil on it. I sprinkled a little more olive oil and a little more of that potato seasoning on just the bottom of the tray. That way these potatoes taste just as good as the ones on the other tray. And I'm just smushing these down now. And then these will go back in. And then we'll turn them into potato skins once they crisp up. Now, these don't just have to be served as an appetizer. They could be served as part of dinner. If you are making steak at home, this is an absolutely delicious way to have a little potato with your steak. And they do make a really great snack. My kids love these. I know we've got 3 pounds of potatoes here, but I have a feeling these are going to be gone real quick. So our second tray is now smashed and ready to go in the oven, and we're going to go back to our spinach artichoke dip. Potatoes are back in the oven, and bacon is doing well. I'm just going to take my garlic chopper. So the neat thing about this garlic chopper is that the top of it's really easy to clean because there's this little, like, I guess, I don't know, tray or something that you pull off, or screen, I guess you'd call it, on the top. So it's very, very easy to clean the top of this because you just pull your tray off or your screen off. And then these little bits here that are on top of the slicer, you can just take with your knife and flick into your bowl. And then your garlic chopper did a lot of work for you, and it's really not very difficult to clean. So anyway, we have our artichoke hearts in here with our garlic, and we are just going to add the rest of our ingredients. We've got a block of cream cheese that is at room temperature, and I think what I might actually do to make this easier is melt this in the microwave. I feel like a lot of times, you know, I let this sit on the counter for a couple hours, but when you go to try to mix this in with your ingredients, it's going to glob up on you. So I am going to put this in a bowl. I'm going to heat this in the microwave for 30 or 45 seconds, and then I'll mix it in when it's like kind of melted, because it's just going to make it so much easier. I'm also going to check on our spinach, which is defrosting. Okay, so this is our frozen spinach that I thawed in the microwave, and now I am just squeezing all of the water out of this. You do not want all this liquid in your dip. If this goes in your dip, you are going to have spinach artichoke soup. You are not going to have dip. So I am just going to do my best here to squeeze as much out as I can. I'm going to dump out some of this liquid really fast in the sink. And then I'm going to continue to squeeze this. There is so much liquid in frozen spinach. And like I said, if this goes in your dip, it is not going to be good. That is good. And a whole pound of spinach, as you can see, shrinks down to almost nothing. Now, you can use fresh spinach for this, but honestly, it is way easier to use the frozen, because the frozen spinach, once you thaw it and squeeze it like this, is all chopped up in very small pieces. It's very easy to mix in. If you bought fresh spinach, I would advise that you cook it first and then add it in. And then again, you're going to have to go through that extra step of having to cook it, and you're still going to have to squeeze out all the liquids. So just buying a bag of frozen spinach is very inexpensive, and it's the easy way to go for this. If you have spinach on hand at home that you just need to use up, and you want to do that, then go for it, but much easier to just go with the frozen. So I'm just getting the last little bits of spinach out of here, and then we're going to mix in the rest of our ingredients. So we've got our brick of cream cheese that I softened in the microwave. Took about 45 seconds just to make that nice and soft and melty. It's going to be much easier to mix this in. As you can see, it is smooth and spreadable, and that is way better than trying to smush a whole solid block of cream cheese in. Now this is some mayonnaise. I prefer Hellmann's or Duke's, and we need a cup of it, so I am going to eyeball that, because very much like vanilla and chocolate chips and shredded cheese, I measure mayonnaise with my heart too. So I think that's probably close to a cup. We're going to get this mixed in a little bit, and then we're going to add some seasonings and then our cheese, and we'll mix it the rest of the way. I've got some wayward bits of artichoke, but this recipe is absolutely delicious. Worth the effort, really not very difficult, just a couple of steps. So let's season it up. Okay, so 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper. And I get my white pepper at the Asia market. It is very affordable to buy lots of spices at the Asia market. We need paprika, so it is a 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. Now, the recipe says to put your paprika and dill on the top of this dip, but I prefer to mix them in because I feel like it tastes better when everything is mixed in. I am going to reserve a little bit of cheese for the top of the dip. The recipe says to just throw all the cheese in at this point, but I like a little bit mixed in and then a little bit at the top. So we're going to get these seasonings mixed in, and the dill the dill in this is wonderful. It smells so good. The paprika is lovely. And if you really wanted to, you could add extra paprika on the top. But I honestly just mix it all in. And let's get our cheese. So now this is the Gouda. We need about 6 ounces. So I feel like that's probably, it's about a cup, cup and a half. So I'm going to use that in there and a little more on the top. And then our Parmesan, same thing. About a cup. And then another little bit's going to go on the top. And then the rest of that cheese, well, we're just going to save that and use another day. Mix all of this together. You want to mix it thoroughly. You don't want to like hit a pocket of cheese or like a glob of cream cheese or something. You want everything mixed. And this is also why I keep the artichokes in big chunks, because when you mix, you'll kind of break things apart just a little bit. And if you were to chop everything in very small, teeny chunks, you're just going to end up with baby food. So we're going to get our plate here. Give that a little cooking spray. We've got lots of dip. And don't worry, this is one of our favorites, so it is not going to go to waste. Also, leftover spinach artichoke dip is delicious. You can take some chicken breast and make a little pocket and shove some of your dip in the chicken breast and bake it. You could actually put this just in a baked potato and eat it like that. Or you can actually add it to some pasta too. So even the plain artichokes, like the leftover artichokes in the jar, are good with pasta. But honestly, you could mix some of your dip with just some pasta and have a fabulous meal as well. So here, scrape that off. And then we're just going to add a little bit more Gouda on the top, not a lot. I don't want a solid mass of cheese on the top of this. I just want a little bit and a little bit of extra flavor, and maybe when we dip into it, we'll get like a nice cheese pull. And just a little bit more of the Parmesan. And then this is going to go in the oven, 375 degrees for about 20 minutes, and we're going to show you what this looks like when it comes out. Our next appetizer could not be easier. It is super, super quick and absolutely delicious. And I have been making this probably since I was a teenager. So I'm just taking a pie plate, spraying it with some cooking spray. And then we're going to take a brick of cream cheese here, an entire brick. And we're going to get this smushed down in the bottom of the pie plate. Now this cream cheese is very soft, so it should smush pretty easily. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm even going to use my fingers. It doesn't matter. And you'll see in a minute that this just kind of makes the base of your dip. And now if I hadn't done cooking spray on the bottom of the pie plate, this might not be slipping around as much. But again, it doesn't matter. My hands are nice and clean. I have washed them plenty of times today while I've been cooking. We're just going to make a nice flat layer here of cream cheese on the bottom. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You just kind of want it spread out. Now, once you've done that, now on top of your cream cheese, you're going to put some chili. Now, we have some chili that we made homemade. I will link that video for you in the description box. But this is our homemade chili, and we're going to put probably about 15, 16 ounces of the chili on top of the cream cheese. Now, if you're going to do this with store-bought chili, then you need a can, like 15, 16 ounce can of Hormel chili with the beans. If you don't like the beans, use the one without beans. And if you don't like Hormel brand, you could certainly use any brand of chili that you like. But we are basically just going to now make a layer of chili on top of the cream cheese. And so it's absolutely not difficult to do. This makes a fabulous dish to bring if you're invited to a party, because it really doesn't require a tremendous amount of effort, but it ends up getting devoured. Like this dip, anytime I've made it for parties or anytime I've brought it to a party, always gets eaten. And it could not be easier. So again, just that layer of cream cheese, a layer of chili, and then you're gonna take sharp cheddar cheese. Now I know I just said you need to shred your cheese at home, but this one we happen to buy store-bought, and that's fine. If you bought your own sharp cheddar and you shredded it yourself, even better. And now for this dip, you want a nice solid layer of cheese for the top of it. For the spinach artichoke dip, I kind of wanted just a little smattering of cheese. I didn't want to blanket it. But for this dip, you want a nice coating of your cheddar. Don't be shy with it. Use enough so that you really can't see the chili poking through. We're going to put this in the oven with our spinach artichoke dip. It's going to cook at 375 for 20 minutes, and we'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Our next appetizer is some buffalo cauliflower. We, as you know, live in Western New York. We love our buffalo wings. Here in Buffalo, we just call them wings, not buffalo wings. But buffalo cauliflower is absolutely delicious alternative to actual chicken when you don't feel like making chicken wings. And it's probably a little bit of a healthier option as well, probably a little bit lower in fat. So we're going to bake these in the oven, and these are going to be some cauliflower wings essentially. And so to start, we're going to make a batter for these. We're going to take 1.5 cups of milk. And to that, I'm going to add 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And if your batter's a little too thick, you can add a little more milk. And if it's too thin, you can add a little more flour. We're just going to whisk this together, and then we're going to season this. Then we will be cutting our cauliflower into florets. And we will batter up our cauliflower, and then we will bake it at a very high temperature. Then we'll be tossing it with a traditional buffalo wing sauce. So this is going to sit for a minute or so. And if we, like I said, if we need to thin it, we can thin it. But right now it's looking like a great batter. So we are going to add some garlic powder. So this is homemade garlic powder. So we have a teaspoon of garlic powder. We have a teaspoon of onion powder. We've got 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. And we've got 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we've got about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And fresh cracked pepper is always going to be tastier than just that stuff that's been sitting in a jar. And we're going to give this a mix so that our batter is tasty. If you just have plain flour and stuff going on your cauliflower, well then your finished product is going to taste like plain flour. So if you want your cauliflower wings to be delicious, you've got to season up your batter. And I think right now this looks like a good consistency, but we'll have to see. It's going to sit for a minute while I cut up this cauliflower, and so we'll see what it looks like in a moment or two. And so let me give this a cut. Now when you're cutting your cauliflower, you want it to be in florets. So what I do is I cut the core out of the cauliflower by just cutting a square in the bottom of the cauliflower. And then you should be able to pick off your florets pretty easily and pull the core out. And then all you have to do is kind of break up the rest of your cauliflower. Now it's okay if you've got some of these like little bits. The little bits are going to be just as good as the slightly bigger bits. You don't want these chopped up too small. You do kind of want them pretty even so that you get even cook time. but those little tiny bits sometimes get a little more caramelized and crunchy than the bigger pieces, and it's a nice contrast to have. So all I'm doing here is just breaking this apart. I'm getting the leaves out of the way. And then we're going to get some cookie trays ready, line them with some foil, get some cooking spray on them, and we will start baking this once it is battered. So I'm going to finish cutting this up, and then we'll show you how to batter it. I've chopped up our 2 heads of cauliflower, and our batter is ready to go. So the consistency of this batter is nice. I would say like a pancake batter was good. And we are going to get this on 2 separate cookie sheets. You do not want to crowd your pan. If you crowd your pan, these are not going to crisp up for you. So we're going to do a little bit of a foil lined, we're going to do a little bit of our cooking spray on our foil lined pan. This just makes for easy cleanup. And then we're going to toss like half of our cauliflower in the batter, get it on the tray, and then toss the other half. So half at a time will ensure that it gets covered properly. So let's see. And I am going to just get my hands dirty for this because I feel like this is the best way to make sure these are coated properly. So unfortunately, there's really no tidy way to do this. I could probably use a spatula or something, but I'm just going to use my hands, and I'm going to make sure that our cauliflower is well coated and get any excess off. Now, it is really worth the time here to kind of coat these individually almost, because like I said, you don't want them, like completely drowned in the batter, but you don't want them under battered. And so tapping off the excess on the side of the bowl and then setting them out here on the tray is exactly what we want. And I'm going to get some more of them in here. So I feel like if you have more in there, then the batter spreads out more evenly and it doesn't get like globbed up on some of your pieces and ignore the other pieces. So we're just going to kind of slowly work the rest of the cauliflower into the bowl and use my hand and mix it all around. Like I said, these little bits are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. The little crispy bits on the bottom of the pan are really delicious. All right, so now we can get these kind of distributed evenly on the 2 trays. And now that I dumped more cauliflower in the bowl, now it was much easier to distribute that batter evenly because there was more vegetable in there to grab it. So when I had like less cauliflower in the bowl, it was just kind of like the batter was sticking to some pieces and not even getting to the other pieces. But now that I added pretty much all the cauliflower all at once, it just really nicely coated everything. So I'm just going to give this bottom layer one last little turn. And then these are roasting in the oven at 450 degrees. We're going to check them after about 20 minutes and see how they're doing. Our dips have already been in the oven for about 20 minutes, but they're not quite heated through. We're giving them about another 10 or 15, and we'll show you them when they're ready. And our potato skins are ready for the next step. So I am just going to finish getting this cauliflower on the tray, and then I'll show you the potato skins. Now I did take our leftover Parmesan cheese and our leftover Gouda and I put it in some containers. Those are going to go in the fridge and we're going to make sure to use those during the week. And then we've got some green onions here. So our dips are still heating up And our cauliflower just went in. That's going to bake at 450, I believe, for 25 minutes altogether. So you flip it halfway through. So we're going to check it in about 12 minutes. And I am just cutting up these green onions so that we can finish up our potato skins. Now, the green onions are sort of, you know, unnecessary. If you don't like them, you don't have to put them on. But I think that they add such great color and great flavor, a little bit of freshness, and I like a little bit of onion flavor with potato. So we are going to go for it. Now I'm going to show you how to get these potato skins set up, and we're going to pop them back in the oven just to melt some cheese, but they're going to be ready to eat very soon. Our cauliflower is in the oven, and now we are ready to get our potato skins finished up. So I moved some of my potato skins back to one tray, and because for this part now we're just adding cheese, we're adding bacon, we're adding chives, and so we don't need them to have a ton of space. They're already cooked, and as you can see, they're nice and brown and crispy. Like, the bottoms of them have kind of gotten crunchy, the edges crunchy, and that's what you want. You don't want mushy potatoes when you're making this, and so you basically want to decorate these like nachos in a way. So you're just going to kind of put a little bit of cheese on each one, and you can put as much cheese on as you like, but I like to be able to still taste the potato, so I'm not going to go too crazy with the cheese. But you just want to make sure that every potato has at least a little bit. And then we're going to put a little piece of bacon on top of each potato, and then a little bit of chive. Then these are going to go back in the oven to heat up. We just want that cheese to melt. And then we're going to serve these with some sour cream. You can, you know, put it on a plate and then add a spoon of sour cream to the plate and then dip. And it is delicious. We also will take French onion dip, and we will mix like a Bison French onion dip. Bison is a brand available in our area. We'll take Bison French onion dip and we'll mix it kind of half and half with sour cream, and we'll use that as a dip sometimes. But whatever you choose to dip these into is going to be amazing. Now I'm basically just going to break off pieces of bacon and put a little bit of bacon on top of each potato hunk. And you don't have to be super particular about this, but you just want, like I said, a little bit of cheese, a little bit of bacon on top of each one. And like I said earlier, you could use turkey bacon if you prefer. You can skip the bacon entirely. But I think that if you try it the way I made it right here, you're going to love it, and everyone will love it. So it looks like everybody's got a good bit of bacon on them. And now we're just going to take our green onion and give it a sprinkle. And then we're going to put these back in the oven just so that the cheese melts, and I'll show you what they look like when they're done. Our dips have come out of the oven and they are ready for testing, which is probably one of the most exciting things. Now, for this chili dip, you want to use Frito scoops. 100% this is the best way to eat this dip. Now for our spinach artichoke dip, we love using bagel crisps or bagel chips. These are the plain ones. You could get roasted garlic or any other flavor that you like. Put our bagel chips, our regular chips like Fritos, and our veggies on a tray, so that way we have lots of things to choose from. And when we go to try our dips now, everybody can just help themselves to the appropriate vessel that they would like to use to get the dip in their body. So now I think I'm going to give these a try. I think it's easier if we have a little bit of a spoon for each one. Our spinach artichoke dip goes really, really well with this bagel crisp. So I am going to give this a try. It looks and smells fantastic. This came out so good. I love that there's 2 different kinds of cheese in it because the Gouda gives you that nice cheese pull and the Parmesan gives you a nice salty bite. I'm not abandoning that. I will go back to it. But I want to try our chili dip. So I'm going to take a Frito here and I'm going to get all of the ingredients. You've got to scoop down and make sure that you get some of that cream cheese on there. So we have chili, we have cheese, and we have cream cheese. This dip is amazing. This reminds me of a walking taco. When we go to see hockey games at our local arena, they sell walking tacos, and you can get basically your bag of Fritos or Doritos or whatever with your taco meat and stuff thrown on it. And that's exactly what this tastes like as a walking taco. It's absolutely delicious. I hope that you try this. I also hope that you try this. But now we are going to make some homemade chicken taquitos. Our cauliflower wings have come out of the oven and they've actually cooked up beautifully. We've got some nice browning on them. And so I'm very pleased with that. And they did release off of the foil pretty easily. So here I have half a stick of butter that I've melted, and we're going to mix in some Frank's Original hot sauce. That is what you do to make it a buffalo wing. And we need about 3/4 of a cup to a cup of that. So I guess I'm just kind of eyeballing that. And we're going to mix that in with our melted butter, and that is a true buffalo wing sauce. I might actually give this a little taste as well, just to see if this is... Yeah, that's pretty good. Probably more like a medium style sauce than mild, but that is fine. And I'm just going to take this brush here, and I'm going to brush the wings with this sauce, and then I'm going to put them back in the oven for a minute or two to kind of warm up the sauce and caramelize it a little bit, and get it all nice and coated and adhered to the wings. And that is going to taste absolutely delicious. These, of course, are going to be served with blue cheese. Comment below if you are Team Ranch or Team Blue Cheese for your wings. We very much enjoy blue cheese in these parts, but we do understand there are some people who like ranch. And although I can't say that I would join you, to each their own, I guess. But I'm just going to continue to spread this amazing buffalo sauce on the wings. You can serve any leftover sauce on the side. And like I said, serve with blue cheese if you're having a proper buffalo wing. And I will show you what these look like when they come out of the oven again in a few minutes. Our cauliflower wings are all done, and so we're going to taste those. We've also got our finished little potato skin bites here. So I'm going to try one of these first, and so it's a really roasty, toasty, crunchy, crispy potato with cheddar cheese and bacon and a little bit of green onion. That is absolutely delicious. The potato is the perfect texture. The little bit of saltiness from the bacon is delicious. That potato seasoning I'm going to try to link for you in the description box. It is an absolute winner. It's so much easier to make than a traditional potato skin. Now I'm going to try these cauliflower wings here. And we're just going to dip these in blue cheese. This is a store-bought blue cheese dressing. You could absolutely make your own if you want to, or you could just serve them with a little bit of crumbly blue on the top and forego the dressing completely. Those came out so good. The tanginess of the Frank's Red Hot sauce, which you absolutely cannot substitute with anything else, is perfect with a little bit of butter. The texture of the cauliflower is great. That batter cooked really nicely, and it is a little bit crispy around the edges. The green onion that I put on the top of it is just a nice touch. And like I said, this would be great served just with a little bit of crumbly blue over the top. You don't have to have something to dip if you don't want to. And these are just absolutely excellent and super tasty. So we're going to finish up today's cooking day with some chicken taquitos. That's the next recipe we're going to make. So we'll be right back to show you how to do that. We are on our final appetizer of the day. We're making some chicken taquitos. And so we have 1 brick of cream cheese here, and we are going to add to that a rotisserie chicken that we shredded up. Now, I just, to make my life easier yesterday, went to the store and bought a rotisserie chicken. We pulled all the meat off of it, and we shredded it up. And so I'm just gonna mix together here this softened cream cheese and all this chicken. And so I guess if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably around 5 cups or so, maybe 4 or 5 cups of chicken. But we are adding that. Now, the recipe also calls for almost a cup of salsa. So we're gonna add, this is homemade salsa that I made. And I'm not gonna add a ton of the liquid. I'm just gonna add mostly the like kind of vegetables without the excess liquid. But I think this is a great way, number one, to use up extra salsa if you have some sitting around in your fridge and you want to use it up. This is a great way to use it, and we are going to add this to our chicken and cream cheese, and to that then, it looks like we've got pretty much all of it. So there we go. We are going to add about a cup and a half or so of shredded cheese. So this is going to be our shredded cheddar that we're adding. It's going to kind of glue everything together. We are also going to add some garlic powder. So a little bit, probably around 2 teaspoons is what the recipe says to do. And then we're going to add the same amount of cumin. And I'm just eyeballing this. You could absolutely take out your measuring spoons here and measure out about 2 teaspoons of your seasonings, but you don't have to. And then a little chili powder. I'm not going to do a ton of chili powder. My salsa has a little heat to it. We don't want a lot of spice, but just a little bit. And now we're going to mix this together. And this is going to be our filling for our taquitos. And then I have corn tortillas here. I've got about 30 tortillas. And we're basically just going to fill up these tortillas with this filling, roll them up, and bake them until they're crispy. And then these will be another excellent snack. Great appetizer. They'd also make a great dinner. And leftovers, I'm sure, are going to be delicious, just heated up in the air fryer. So I'm going to mix this all together, and then I'm going to show you how to roll this. So our filling is nicely mixed here, and we have that really nice combination. This almost reminds me of like an enchilada filling. I feel like you could make this up and put it in some flour tortillas and put some enchilada sauce over the top, and it would be delicious that way as well. So I'm using corn tortillas here. I've got small tortillas, and I'm going to fill these. It says about 2 to 3 tablespoons of filling per taquito, and then it just says to roll it tightly and then put them seam side down on the tray. So we are going to do that about 30 times or until we run out of filling or tortillas. And I guess I'm trying to make the filling sort of evenly distributed before I go to roll it. That way it's not difficult to roll. And like I said, I'm going to line these up on the tray. We'll get a whole bunch of them made, and I'll show you what my tray looks like when it's done. Our first tray of taquitos here is done. I've got them rolled up, and these now are going to get sprayed with a little cooking spray, or you can brush them with a little bit of oil. I think maybe I can get one more on there. And so we'll just do one more. And then these go in a 425-degree oven, and they're going to bake for about 20 minutes until the top gets nice and brown and crisp. If you want to, you can broil these for a minute or two if you need them to get a little crispier. But we are basically just going to give these a spritz here with some cooking spray, get them in the oven. We'll show you what they look like when they come out. All right, here we are with our finished final appetizer presentation. These are the taquitos. Some of these I actually cooked in the air fryer because I ran out of room on the tray that I put in the oven. So these ones have cooked in the air fryer and look delicious and crispy. The ones in the oven look lovely as well. They just have a few more minutes to go. So we're still going to show you our final spread of food here so that we can actually get to eating. And I'm going to dip one of my homemade taquitos here in some salsa and let you know what I think. I love the corn tortilla with this. We generally use flour tortillas for a lot of our like taco or enchilada nights. This taquito in the corn tortilla is delicious. That nuttiness that the corn gives and the crunch is fantastic. The nice creamy cheesy chicken filling is fantastic, and it's not super spicy. The salsa is a nice touch. We've got our sour cream with our potato skins here and our buffalo cauliflower with blue cheese. So to have a salsa dip for these is a nice sort of lighter dip to have. The chili dip and the spinach artichoke dip have already been attacked, as you can see, and we've had a great day cooking these up for you. We're gonna have a great evening trying out all of these things and making them into our snacky dinner. And I want to thank you for joining us here in the Pickup Kitchen. Once again, I'm so grateful that you take some time out of your day to spend some time with me while I make yummy things to feed my family and hopefully show you some nice, affordable ways to get food on your table. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Good night.